Hello and welcome to the Impact Zone podcast. We are back once more to talk more TNA wrestling shenanigans. And we finally got an update on the Slammiversary card. It is thus far 2 matches. Now, I thought there would be a third, but that's probably coming next week. We already have discussed that on the spoilers video that I did a little while ago. Now, regarding the main event, especially, I think we're going to talk about this like the most upcoming. So I think we'll save that for last before we uh you know get to talking about it, because it is really important and I want to spend the majority of this video talking about that. So I will just quickly try to cover, or as quickly as possible, try to cover the tag team match before getting into the main event. So this tag team match, this four-way tag team match, it's been like something that I couldn't tell that they were trying to do this. And that's been the problem. If you had have announced this and had have said this like a couple of weeks ago or whatever, at least then people would be like, okay, now we know what you're trying to do or where you're trying to go or why you're trying to get there or whatever. That's why announcing matches is so important. Now we're only a couple of weeks away from the event. Yes, we still have time to promote that event and whatnot, and they have still time to promote that event and whatnot, but still, if you know, even knowing a month in advance isn't a whole lot. You really need to know these things well in advance so that you've got a lot of time to promote them. Or it needs to be, blatantly obvious what's kind of happening. Everyone kind of needs to be involved in this thing that's going to be involved from this thing from the start. And with AJ Francis, he's been involved with a match with Santana, so they're really sort of been on that outlying sort of line. The Rascals have been more involved with the Hardys, with the Nemesis, than what the Hardys have, and things like that. So the Hardys haven't really done anything, and maybe that was not intentional, but whatever, I don't know. But they've shown the Rascals to basically have beaten the Nemesis, I think, twice thus far, and maybe they're gonna they've got another match against the Nemesis next week, or I think Trey does. I don't think he'll be winning that, but it's they've already won 2 matches against them in some form or fashion. So it's it starts feeling like they're gonna win potentially, but I don't know. Does that make sense? Really, the Nemesis have sort of won these belts, sort of thing. So I don't know. I'm sort of counting out First Class in this one, mainly because I feel again, there's just no momentum on their side, going for, or having been, sort of in another program. So it's well, they haven't really shown themselves as a tag team, and maybe they sort of have, but Casey got injured, and I think that may have changed plans. I don't know, but still, I don't know. You could have still done stuff, or you could have still kept the team stuff going on, but you could have just said that AJ now, is doing this just because he his partner's injured or whatever. The Hardys, they're maybe here to Bound for Glory. We know this. We don't know that they're going to stick around. And like they're a huge asset to the company in many ways, but they're also a huge investment in many ways. So are the Nemeths in many ways, or at least Nick Nemeth is. Um, it's the same thing with Moose actually, but I don't want to. We've already kind of talked about that, so I won't really touch on that too much. But all the big stars are obviously a big investment. Now you've got to have those big investments, but the thing is about those big investments is they're a really big investment. So like having that extra money to go to other things or whatever would be useful. But then again, it does depend on you know what their plans or whatever are for distribution in a new network or a more advertising revenue or better advertising partners and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, I certainly understand that. And I understand the people who sort of say, well, we don't want, everything bombarded with, you know, uh, you know, every single like advertisement on the planet, and things like that. Yeah, I get that, but that's kind of like what you've kind of got to do. You've got to make money in this business, so it's the way it is. So I think that that's also something that you would purely have to start looking at. You're looking at this as not so much of the potential title changes or whatever else it is. You're looking at building a story. And if the story is still the Hardys trying to get back to the belts, and that's probably a smart idea in my opinion, because again, the thrill is always in the chase for the baby faces. Like they should have shorter reigns, just based on the fact that people get bored of the good guy's finally done his thing kind of thing very quickly. So you need to kind of wrap that up, or you need to kind of give them really, really good opponents or really good things to overcome when they are champion. If you're going to have them more long term, because otherwise people just get bored of the same old shtick effectively. But then again, you sort of only have a few ways to sort of utilize them, or find ways to sort of give them things to overcome. So it's one of those things that does become very much like, oh, this is the same or virtually the same thing that they've already done. So that what's the investment here unless you're really invested in the characters, or whatever. But still, certain people obviously will fall into that sort of same old stick kind of problem, especially the Hardys. Like they will fall into that Legends role stick, and that's going to be no matter what. Effectively, we know that. I mean, that's their role, and that's where they're at. So but yeah, that's my perspective. I think the Rascals, like they've already gotten a few wins, kind of over the Nemeth, so you could keep telling a story with them to pad out that rivalry. I don't know who else you could kind of put in that position right now, but you could keep trying to put other teams in that position, or you could do other things. I don't know. You could move away from like the defenses of the tag team titles and just be like, okay, let's focus in on something that we haven't focused in on, or like having just a B or C storyline for the tag team titles, upcoming, and then saying, okay, because that's probably what the Rascals angle probably is as well. It's like it's a B angle or C angle. It's not the main angle, but it'll sell. It will be fine for what they're gonna do. But then again, also you don't want the Rascals to go away and feel like, oh well, we're not going to be able to come back from this or whatever else it is. So you want the people to be still like thinking, in 3 months time, 5 months time, whatever it is, after Bound for Glory, that hey, well, the Rascals are still here, and they deserve another shot or whatever else it is, or somebody else might, another team might come along, and you might go, okay, let's see where they can go, or how the company will put them in the picture. So this match, these matches are always chaotic, these ladder matches and whatnot. So it's gonna be a tough match. It's gonna be action packed, total non-stop action, as they say. So it'll be an exciting match, but I think like that idea that I just sort of, you know, it's not an original idea, but it's the most obvious idea. The heels win, lol, type thing. Well, that's where I think we're going, because like they and the Nemesis and I feel like it will be the Nemesis. It won't be First Class because they don't have a real story coming in and whatnot. So it's like, well, and it's been like they really don't seem to know what they're going to do with First Class. They seem to, be a team sometimes. They seem to be almost breaking up sometimes. They seem to be like pursuing their own individual success sometimes. And that's fine sometimes, but it's like, well, they either need to be a team or they need to be like an individual, like trying to go for gold or whatever. You can't have both type thing. So, yeah, I don't see that for them right now. Maybe if they like really push them into that tag team scene, that'll be good. But the thing is, I feel like actually AJ's match with Santana was really good. Um, so I think like things like that, keep him to doing something with somebody that can, you know, make what he does look good, um, or keep him in a tag team. Like that's his role. I think like that's where he belongs. He belongs in doing some things sometimes. Not really being like the carry for anything. Really. And Casey, I feel like he should be in the X division somewhere. He should be getting close to getting that title at some point, down the road, at least, or having a feud with somebody and then having a potential feud later on. Like they're a good team in some ways. Like I said, like that works for AJ, but it doesn't really work for KC. KC's like a really good single star. So it's sort of starting to be like, well, he's the obvious standout. Let's move on with him and see what we can do with him as a singles guy. And you could like again do the Shawn Michaels thing with the Diesel thing, having AJ be his heavy and whatnot. You could kind of just do that. So I don't know. I don't know where you're gonna go with it from here. You could kind of do like sort of the opposite thing. Like I don't know how much time like Diesel and Shawn like spent together when Diesel was like doing like a major thing. Like I think they became tag team champions like later on, I think. And sometimes Shawn would come out during Diesel's matches, maybe. I don't know. You could kind of do that as well with AJ trying to get, the world title or trying to get the international title or whatever, and KC being like his effectively like heating manager or whatever. So I don't know. Yeah. But at the end, I feel like it's probably the Nemesis somehow, some way, pulling this out. Like, again, this will be a crazy match. There'll be huge, big things, people going off ladders, through ladders, etc., all this sort of stuff. So it's going to be exciting. Now, the main event. Now, I have the very distinct feeling that things are going to change here because we already know, as we've sort of talked about, some of the things that have happened or some of the things that are upcoming in the next week. Now, I want to look very specifically. Where are we at? We are... So next week will be, I believe, the 4th, 11th. So that's what, basically 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. So there's 3 weeks of TV, I believe. Okay. So there's 3 weeks worth of stuff that we haven't really seen, which is crazy to me. I don't know what, like, I don't even know where that would be. So we'll have to find out. But so Trick Williams currently versus Joe Hendry. That is what we're looking at. Now, like I said before, like, probably Kazarian should be in this, like, as well. And Santana recently said, hey, I want a match at Slammiversary for the title. Santino, you owe me. You know. Now, why would he be allowed to say that? Why would that be broadcast? Or why would that exist? Or why would, he wouldn't have even grabbed the mic if that wasn't part of the plan. People can go into business for themselves, obviously. But the thing is, like, if he had have gone into business for himself, like, they would have cut the mic, or they would have cut the footage, or they would have not broadcast the footage, or something. They would have done something so that people didn't go, oh, well, wants to challenge for the title, so obviously something's going to happen. So, yeah, there's not a thought in my mind at the moment that this is at least going to be a triple threat, if not a four-way, if not something else at this moment. Now, I think that Elijah's injury potentially did change this match as well, because, again, like before, I felt like, well, maybe this was going to be Francis in this match as well. And then maybe you could have had Casey in another match somewhere. I don't know, but still, you could have done that sort of thing, and then having a couple other people involved in this. So, yeah, I thought it was going to be a 5 or 6 way already, but now it's got to be something like that. It's got to be something where, somebody else has added to this, because there's 2 people at least that deserve, or feel like they deserve, the shot, especially Santana. A lot of people want Santana to be in this match. So, and I think, again, like, despite, like, Trick Williams, like, I don't like them hot potatoing the title or whatever else, things like that. I feel like it wasn't a bad decision to put the belt on him. Now, I don't think it was bad, but the thing is, like, there's a lot of baby faces in TNA, or top level baby faces, so you kind of need a heel to kind of be there to help people, like, be like, okay, why are we tuning in to see Joe Hendry? Oh, we're tuning in to see Joe Hendry try to get the belt back. We're tuning in to see Santana try to get the belt back. That's a really great heel position. It'll draw a fair amount of eyeballs and money. The thing is, I think people despite the crowd reactions, I do think that it is time to try to move on from Joe Hendry, because, again, he's probably not sticking around long term. So it's like, well, what are you going to do with him? The thing is, as well, it does feel like they it's it's tough to say because it's like it really feels like this experiment is kind of working with Trick, and I don't want, as I sort of was saying, them to hot potato the title to change it to somebody else. But the thing is, like, how much longer can you keep this going? How much longer can Trick Williams kind of be holding that belt? And how much longer? Because I'm fully thinking, or I was fully thinking, maybe this is the time to drop the belt to somebody else, you know, move on, do something else, that sort of thing. Because, you know, how can they keep, like, they could keep Trick in this position and whatnot. But thing is, it's like, how do you do that? Like, you have him win, obviously, but how is he, like, being able to be like, hey, how much does WWE actually want me on their roster? Or how much does WWE actually want me to be in Raw or SmackDown or NXT or whatever else it is? Like, at a certain point, like, TNA seems to want me more. Like, or I'm being allowed to be in TNA more than what I'm allowed to be in WWE. So am I actually a WWE guy, or am I, working for TNA more so? You know? And are they actually going to call me up to the quote unquote main roster or whatever else it is? Maybe, but like, where's that going? What's the end point for this? And there's got to be an end point for this. Like, you can't just keep going, well, it continues. It doesn't work. Maybe it'll happen at Bound for Glory, who knows? But again, maybe it could happen here. But again, I do feel like it is somewhat hot potatoing that belt. But that's where I'm at. I'm just thinking, like, how in the world can you keep this up? Like, you really can't keep it up. I think from a story standpoint, you could certainly keep it going. But I feel like, at a certain point, it does become one of those things that it's like, well, what's going on, dude? Because he's like, I just looked it up because wanted to look it up. He's only held the belt for like 30 days at the moment, and Joe Hendry only held it for like 126 days. So that was a pretty short reign in some ways. I mean, not under like 100, but even 100 days is pretty short. Like 90 days is only like 3 months. So like 120 is like 4 months. Yeah. So yeah, that's not a lot, really. So yeah, I honestly, I want to see more. I want to see more in some ways than like just 30 days. Obviously, I think that's way too short. Like, but you start like, is it this person's time? Is it that person's time? Is it this? You know, it feels like it's been Santana's time for a while. You know, but it's sort of tough. And if Joe loses here, it starts becoming like, well, what do you do next? with him. Because again, like you've got to keep him in that position. He is one of the biggest draws in the company. So I feel like as well, it's not just saying that Joe's not good enough or not big enough or not bad enough or whatever else it is to main event this show. He certainly is. But if you have other people in this match like Kazarian, like Santana, or whatever else it is, they don't have to win, but it has to be something so that Trick can retain, in my opinion, and that will protect Joe, that will protect Santana, potentially, if he's in this match. And even if Kazarian takes the pin, which, whatever, that's fine. Like, as I said before, some people, like, really wanted to see Kazarian win the belt. Like, I think there was a time to put the belt on him, but I think, like, that sort of has kind of passed, and it's sort of, like, time to think, like, yes, he could hold the belt, as I sort of said. You could transfer it from Trick to Kazarian, and then you could have a build for Joe and Kazarian again. But then again, you kind of want to keep it going all the way to Bound for Glory. You don't want to just end it. But then again, same thing. You kind of want to keep something going for Santana. So it's like, well, maybe that's the answer. Maybe it's not like saying let's put Santana in this match. Maybe let's just announce that Santana and Trick will, or something like it, like Bound for Glory, because we don't know where it's going to be at yet. It will be in New York, and it will be, a potential match between Santana and Trick. So I don't know. But then again, it's like, well, you've got to keep Hendry in there. So it's like, I don't know. It's a really tough position to kind of be in when you've got a lot of people that need to be in the title picture, or really want to be in the title picture, because like if you don't have Joe Hendry or Santana in that title picture, it sort of makes it like, well, what's going on? These guys are your drawers, and especially if Joe Hendry's not gonna stay in TNA or whatever else it is, it's very much like, well, what's next for him, or what's next for whoever, the whole company. Like, if you're gonna say like, Hendry's gonna be in it, but if he loses or if whatever, that's his last chance, or it's, his pink slipped or something, or he loses, he leaves town or whatever else it is, or doesn't get the title somehow, he leaves town or whatever, something like that. That would be a good way to write him out, because then it's like, it does suck in some ways, but it's just like, obviously you've got to think like that. You've got to think like, well, he's leaving, and then if he stays, like, okay, let's go from there. Same with the Hardys. Like, you've got to think, no, they probably are leaving, so let's think about the rest of the division as a whole. Not like you've got to depend on Hendry as much as what you can, but you can't be overly dependent on him. You've got to put other people in that, position and in that space and in that opportunity, so that, you can get to that point of people going, oh, well, we're not too sad that Hendry's gone or whatever else it is, because there's somebody else and there's somebody else and there's somebody else and there's always something else, type thing. But you also have to appease everyone who's like, we want Hendry, or whatever, because he is that for a lot of people, so you can't just be like, oh, let's forget about this guy, or let's move him down the card, or whatever. he's the, number one guy in the company in many ways. So, and you've got to bring more people up to that level, even if he's not leaving, which he probably is, but still, you've got to look at it like he probably is, So, I guess for now, I am putting my money on Trick. And probably despite any additions or any changes, I still think that will be, you could have the feel good moment of putting the belt on Santana. I like that, but again, I just don't like the whole hot potatoing of the title thing. So, and I really feel like having a 30-day reign is stupidly short, even though it's again, you that's the idea. Draw money with this. The only way you draw money with things like these is, extending them and saying, oh, he's got, we're going to get to Bound for Glory in 3 months or whatever it is. I think it's about 3 months. No, it's actually 2 months from now. Well, he'll have had it a 3-month or so reign roughly by then. Having a 3-month reign as a champion is still really dumbly short. It's still absurdly short. Maybe 4 months. So, yeah. Or close to it. So, that's still really, really short. And he's, as I said, he's got a bunch of opponents. Hendry, Santana. You can cook up some other people that are, or push up some other people that are kind of on the roster to being in that position. Maybe Macklin. I kind of like the idea of Macklin, but I don't know. I really like that idea. I keep going back to it. I keep wanting to go back to it. You've just got Cedric Alexander came in. You've got Elijah there. You can do big things with him still. So who else have you got? You got Mace Warner, but that's not really where he'd be in that position yet. You got Jake something, though I don't really think he'd be a pay-per-view level opponent yet. Just funnily enough, you got the hometown man. Yeah, I mean, that's silly, but I just think it's funny. So yeah, you've got Callahan, maybe. I don't know why they've kind of changed Matt Cardona to being a babyface. Okay, sure, whatever. You've got a few people there for him to potentially face off against. So, I still just think that that's somewhat the plan, and that if you have, Santana in this match, if you have other people in this match, it takes away from, or doesn't take away from it, but it takes away that, oh, he really lost type thing or whatever. But then again, same thing for Santana. I know people don't want to see Santana lose, but or even not lose, whatever. You know what I mean? He didn't lose, but he lost or whatever. He didn't win, so therefore he lost type thing. Same thing for Hendry. So I don't know, dude. You've got to keep everyone's wheels spinning until the point at which, it makes sense, or it makes more sense. And you've built something else out of it so that, people aren't gonna just be like, oh man, we've lost Joe Hendry, but we're so excited because Santana's our guy now, or whatever, So that is where I'm at with this thus far, right now, right here, right now. So yeah, I I'm interested because, as I said, there's a whole bunch of stuff that we covered in the spoilers, and I'm just trying to figure out like what is like some of it is like obvious for next week, but it's like some of it we said that some of it didn't seem like there was um enough there. It didn't really like I didn't really read through the Marsha Slamovich Kelly matchup. It really wasn't mentioned. Um and there's a bunch of things that really weren't there. It was like, huh, like what's going on? So maybe that's where we're like at with this right now, because it's like we're still trying to find or still trying to figure out, like, or not trying to figure out, but they've filmed all this stuff, but like somehow some way it's fallen through the cracks of me like reading through all this stuff, and it just sort of like like I wasn't looking in the right place. Like I said, I couldn't really find the right things. Sometimes it's hard to find the right reports that cover everything. So, it might be in there, and that's maybe why, again, we've still got a couple of weeks, but it's like we really need to, like, though we've announced the main event, and that's usually what mainly sells these shows, you can't forget about the rest of the show. Like, you certainly got two other matches there, and they're both really big time matches, really important big time matches. But you can't forget, like, there are other things. I think, like, the way I read things or whatever I might have read them wrong. So we'll wait and see, I guess. So that does add to the, like, not unpredictableness of it, but it adds to the, like, oh, what's going to happen next type aspect, which I guess is unpredictable. But like, even having read the spoilers, or some of the spoilers at least, like, now we do know some things, but we don't know all the things. And hopefully we'll find out those things, because it is somewhat clear or somewhat implied, some things, but until it's announced or until it's happening or whatever, it's going to be one of those things that, well, what are we doing, why are we doing, how are we doing, etc. So yeah, guys, all this stuff, obviously, as I've said, but I do always have to come on and talk about it, and give my feelings on things, because, as I said before, it really did feel like, well, we really need to start putting on the gas and start, announcing stuff, and they finally did. But I don't think it's too little too late. I think I'll say that is important, in my opinion. But it does feel like, you should have just announced this like a couple of weeks ago, whatever. That way, at least you're starting to get, like, you've got the biggest matches, like, or at least the biggest match set, and people go, okay, this is where we're going, or there's something else going on here, so we could expect to see something else. So, but yeah, guys, you all know this, I know, but yeah, I've got to get it out there for the people that don't, or get the out there for the people who want to hear my opinion or thoughts or whatever else it is. So, but yeah, guys, hope you've enjoyed this one, and hope you will join me again in another one.